So I got a chance to look at your special occasion speeches, and right now you should be feeling pretty darn good about yourselves. I am impressed. I am pleased as an instructor to see what you've done. You all will have a few things to work on, but for the most part, oh my gosh, you're getting it, which is so awesome. Now, what I'm going to do is give you private feedback. So I will give you private feedback in your user grade report that will not be seen by anybody else, along with your grade, of course. Now, I want to do a couple of reminders that this is a hybrid course, so I'm glad to see the attendance is pretty good today. And just remember, you need to be here at least once a week. So a few attendance issues have popped up, and I'm concerned about those because I technically have to drop you if you miss 2 weeks in a row. So keep that in mind. Also, I want you to remember to be working on your peer analyses. So you need to watch at least 2 of your classmates' videos and respond to them or write a critical analysis for them, remembering to cite your source according to something that you've read in the textbook, something that I've said in a video, something that is a point on a rubric, or in the online notes or wherever. Okay, so keep that in mind. You need to cite your source so that when you give that feedback to your classmates will know where to go look to continue to self-improve. And also be kind, but I don't think that's going to be a problem here. Now, if you want extra credit, it's got to be turned in on the 13th, which is Sunday. Sunday is the close officially of everything due for Module 1. At that point, 1/4 of your class will be completed, and you will see where your grade is as of a quarter of it being achieved, which is always good. So that extra credit you're going to have to turn in Sunday night. So make sure it's turned in before. And actually what you do is you're going to send me an email with your observations and answer. And if you forgot what the extra credit was, look in your notes. You're at the top for the announcements, and/or go ahead and look at your emails. All right. So today, I don't know if you noticed, but Module 2 is now open. I opened that up for you this morning, and you may now take a look at it. So what we're going to do is actually go through an overview of what it entails. This is harder. The speech is longer. You are going to be giving it to me with an actual rubric that I will be using, and we'll talk about that in a moment, not just for the outline, but actually a really detailed rubric for the delivery of the speech. Now, you can deliver it to me in a couple of methods. The best method is to do it through Collaborate so that I can record it. Another method is you can, do it over the telephone, but that's not really great for learning, but it will work. I have used the telephone for these speeches to be delivered, and so that will work. It's not ideal, but it'll work. So that if anybody doesn't have access to a webcam and cannot use Collaborate, don't worry, it's not the end of the world. We'll get you through this, and we'll do what we need to do to help it all be successful for you. Okay, let's start off with what are we trying to achieve. So if you want to look at this module in your Moodle course, so go ahead and pull it up on your laptops or your phone, and it's under, obviously, Module 2. And I want to walk you through a couple of elements. At the top of it, you're going to see that this module, and I'm going to pull it up for me. The title for this module is that it's a personal narrative to inform and persuade, or persuade and perform. So in your outline at the top, you're going to put both, all right? One will probably be stronger than the other. Obviously, you're going to be informing because you're going to tell stories, that you can learn from, but you're also going to be motivating people. All right, so think about this as a motivational kind of speech where you want people to do or do not do something that you have done in the past. All right, up at the top, it's got lectures and readings. It's got a little workbook, and you can click on that on your own. It's got a little green notebook, and you can follow that. But there's a few elements on here that I want to highlight. We're going to go into more depth later lectures, but to just kind of give you a feel for what you're trying to achieve. So the first thing is that I'm going to be grading you heavy on your nonverbal communication. So when we look through that rubric, you're going to see there's a whole lot of points that's just on your nonverbal delivery. All right. We're also going to be looking at you having the ability to connect a message to your audience. Now, all of you, if you record, if we do collaborate and I can record you, all your classmates will have a chance to see this video, which is really good. Even if you don't load it up, you still have to do a critique of others. You're going to be watching 4 videos, right? 4 speeches. That's the same thing you would do if we were in a regular seated class. You would be watching actually 20 speeches. But for this, we're going to have you watch 4 of the ones that are recorded. You're going to do the same kind of critique that you've done before. I, however, am going to be using, as I said, a very detailed rubric to grade. So we're upping the stakes a little bit, making it a little bit harder. And so, yeah, you're going to be a little bit better. All right. So when you are selecting your topic, your story, your personal experience that you want to share with your classmates, don't have me in mind. I want you to have your classmates in mind. They are your audience. So they are the people you are going to be informing and motivating. So that when your classmates are watching your video, they're going to say, oh, I don't want to make that mistake. Or, yeah, that's a great idea. I want to go do that. Okay, so keep that in mind. That's who you are trying to motivate. Now, we are going to talk at length, not right now, but later. We're going to talk about what are known as the 8 goals for persuasive speaking. And that's going to help you build the words that you select, the examples that you use, the story that you pick, so that it's really going to be truly persuasive. It's not going to be just, ugh. It's going to be something persuasive. I have had students bring their classmates to tears by this because they self-disclose something that's incredible. And they have both been happy tears. I've had speeches that have been really happy tears, and some speeches that have been like, oh, crap. You know, where people are just so sorry, and after the speech is delivered, they got to go up and give them a hug and all that stuff. That's when you know you've reached your audience, when you get that emotion coming from them. All right, which takes us to number 4 here. Because number 4 is you want to be able to really hone in on Aristotle's pathos, ethos, and logos. And I'm going to introduce a new concept called mythos to you, all right? And that's the myth. And that's what we're going to be using by looking at an Aesop fable. Now, The fifth objective is really to look at argumentation or problem-solving methods as an approach or methodology for how you're going to communicate your message. And so we'll get into that. All right. So that's what we're going to be doing, and we're going to put that over there. So stay tuned. There's a lot to learn. Keep in mind that a lot of what you're learning in this you can use for persuading people to hire you, persuading people to buy a product that you're trying to sell, persuading a professor to change a grade. Lots of moments of persuasion. Okay. Next thing is I want to draw your attention again to the almighty outline. You're going to be graded on this again. Your outline is explained in the assignment, the actual directions. We'll go through that in a moment. I am not going to ask you to submit a draft. There's no draft. You're going to turn it in for grade. If, however, you would like some feedback before you turn it in for grade, you may send it to me as an email, as an attachment in an email, and I will give you general comments. Okay? But at this point, you should have this outline down pat. You should know exactly what's expected of you. Right? The other item is I want to draw your attention to the actual rubric. If you have your laptop, go into your laptop under Module 2 where it says the grading rubric for the narrative speech and pull up what you see there. So pull up that document. What you are going to see is that the intro, the body, and the conclusion on the top part of the rubric is exactly what's on the rubric for introduction, body, and conclusion on your outline. So again, what you're designing in your outline is what you're going to deliver, right? So these are the same. The same thing that you did in the last speech, you still need to label everything, bold your labels, etc. But now what I want you to do is to jump down to where it says delivery. And I want you to notice that the points are 20 points. Now look at the bottom and you'll see that the maximum points for this speech are 50 points. So this is the one speech that we are really, really going to focus on. How do you deliver it in terms of your body language, your facial expressions, your eye contact, your gestures, your tone of voice, all those factors, all right? So 20 points. You'll see then that when we go into our later speeches, delivery points are going to go down, and these points are going to go up. Okay? And your last two speeches are going to be 100 points. Okay? So you can start to see how we weight content far more heavily in the next speeches. And we do that on purpose because when you're talking about your own personal story, it's easier to have a lot of animation in the delivery of your speech because it's your story. So you know it like the back of your hand, and you can have some fun with the delivery of it. Now here's another thing I want you to notice. Under delivery, you're going to see time. Hear this carefully. You either make the time or you don't. If you make the time, you will get 5 points. If you are under the minimum time, which is 3 minutes for this one, you are under 3 minutes, okay, or you are over, oops, 3.5 minutes, okay, so you're under, but you're over, all right, you're not going to get your 5 points. I don't do any, 2 points or 3 points. No, you either get them or you don't, okay? But I want you to notice where it says time usage, it says within plus or minus 15 seconds. So here and here, I give you a grace period of plus or minus 15 seconds. All right? Some people just really like that cushion, so I'm going to do that for you. Let's see. I want you to also notice at the bottom of this paper, it has an extra credit assignment. And the extra credit assignment is worth 20 points. And all you're going to do is read the Rainbow Passage. Okay, so go back into Module 2, so you can close this rubric. Go back into Module 2, and you're going to see there a hyperlink that's going to take you to the Rainbow Passage. So I'd like to give you a moment to click on that hyperlink and go out to the Rainbow Passage. Are you there? Shake your heads. Good. All right. This is completely optional if you want the extra credit. It is a diagnostic tool to analyze your dialect. In public speaking, we are looking for people to have a vanilla dialect. By vanilla, I mean bland, boring, unidentifiable dialect. Which means that in public speaking, the goal is to not be able to be identified from a region. It's true, right? If any of you are going into broadcasting, if any of you are going into media, you're going to be doing any kind of voiceover or anything like that. And so this is the preparation for those of you who are especially going into getting advanced degrees in communication studies. What I will be doing is I have a diagnostic, and you are going to simply read that paragraph. And if you see the paragraph, it's not at the very top. It starts with when the sunlight strikes. Do you see that? That is the paragraph that you're going to read, and you're just reading it. That's it. I'm doing all the work. All right. And while you're reading it, I'm going to be hearing and taking notes and making comments that I will then get back to you to tell you or give you feedback about the dialect. All right. Now, some people have very, very strong dialects. Very strong. In North Carolina, we have many different dialects. Some of them may be how you speak, some of them may be how your parents or grandparents speak, or some of them are just you noticed as soon as you moved here from another state. All right. And let me just give you a couple of them. So, people who are from the Outer Banks, born and raised there, or at least were born and lived there up to about the age of 6 or 7, all right? You will hear a very distinct dialect, and you can really hear it in the word about. You will hear them say about, all right? This is very close to a Canadian kind of accent, and it is very regional. There are some other words that you can hear as well. Some of you, again, may have relatives or yourself who are from what we call country. The country accent tends to be in the highly rural, where there might be one stoplight or there might be one small store. And it's mostly rural with a lot of farming, a lot of animal husbandry, you know, raising pigs, raising chickens, you know, those kinds of things. And the country accent, I can't even, well, actually I can't. Let me give you an example. Here's an example of somebody asking in country, hard for me to do. Armard? Does anybody understand what I just said?
Say it again.
Armard?
Are you married?
Yeah, see? You get it. Okay, that's country. Now, I honestly had to have, you know, being the California girl, had to have that person repeat that phrase to me a few times, and I actually had to have the person spell it for me so that I knew what was being said, all right? Because that accent was so different for me. And it's awesome. It's such a rich, beautiful accent. It's so fun, but it's not vanilla. So it causes people to have to really try and understand. We also have up in the mountain region, right, up in close to the Tennessee border and the West Virginia border, we have another accent. And that accent, I can't even go there. But I will tell you it's a fascinating accent because it is closer to Elizabethan English from England than even in England. All right, so we've got the mountain. And then we have, let's see, we have, how do it's the Native American group, help me out. No, that's up in the mountains. No, where, Lumberton. And the Lumbee Native Americans in the Lumberton area. They have a very distinct accent. And what's interesting is when you listen to the Lumberton and you watch the mouth, their mouth does not go as open as loud. So their mouth tends to talk a little bit more like this. Okay? And so that's how they all form their words. Oh, it's so fun. This is what a linguist studies. This is the study of linguistics, the study of language and dialects and how they represent cultural people. And it's so fun. It's so interesting. And, you know, my way is so boring and so vanilla. So what we do is if you have an accent or a dialect that causes a person to hesitate to be able to understand you. That is an opportunity for personal development. Now, that doesn't mean that we want you to lose that accent at all. That means that we want you to do is what's called code switching. All right? I'm going to be posting a video, and I'm going to ask you all to watch it before next class that illustrates code switching. And it's awesome. All right, it's very short, very short. And what it does is it demonstrates how people can change the codes that they use. Remember way back when we talked about the process of communication and the sounds that they make for abbreviations or the actual words, tones, dialects, accents, etc., to meet the group. And you've seen that. You've seen comedians do this. You've seen actors and actresses do this, where they will take on a different dialect for a particular representation. All right. So we don't want you to change it. We want you to be able to switch, to change it so that it will fit your needs, fits you. Okay? That'll serve your purpose. All right. So that's what we're going to be doing. But that's extra credit. You don't have to do that. That's only if you want to. Okay. Next. Go ahead and close that down. And I'd like for you to go into the handout that says the instructions for developing a personal narrative speech. What I'm going to do is I'm going to break your speech down into the parts. All right. So this box is not huge, and it represents your intro. It still needs to have all of the elements that's on the outline, all right, and the rubric. So make sure that they're still there. But that's not going to be the majority of your time. Main point number one, all right, it's going to be about the same size, okay? The main point number one, and that's explained here, is going to be a retelling of a fable, all right? And this is going to be the Aesop fable. Now, most of you know what an Aesop fable is. So you learned it when you were a little kid, and the things like the little boy who cried wolf, the tortoise and the hare. Oh, there's so many of them. In fact, I gave you a hyperlink to a site that has 600 different fables. And in the when you go to the page that I give you, it'll even tell you what the moral of the fable is. Oh, very important. Right? And the reason is because the next box is the big box. This represents the majority of your speech. Most of your speech should be here, and this is main point number two, and this is your own personal story. That's what narrative is. It's a story. Okay? It's yours. The reason it is long is because you've got to add details, 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 details. You've got to have the person feel like they're there with you. You are going to appeal to your audience's pathos. right? There's feelings. There's, were you scared? Are you using words? Are you using body language? Are you doing everything now? So, man, I was, this is not, I was scared. This, my hand was shaking, my knees were shaking. I was like, oh, all right. So that's what you want to do. Okay. And that pathos, naturally there's going to be some logos and ethos and all those other kinds of things in there. And the logos is that you're going to logically start by telling this fable, and you're going to explain the moral. And then what you're going to do through the story telling of your own, you are going to teach a lesson, right? You're going to teach your audience, your classmates, what to do or what not to do, or what to say and not to say, all right? These should be connected, should be about the same thing, all right? So what you're doing is that you're telling a fable and you're telling your own story, so you're telling something twice, all right? But you're using a different scenario, a different set of characters, different words, etc., to get your meaning across. Okay. And then you got your conclusion. Notice it's going to be small again. Now your conclusion is where you got to have the punch, all right? It's going to ask you for a memorable thought and or a call to action. This needs to be good. This needs to be, this got to be like, drop the mic. It's so good after you say it, and your classmates, your audience is going like, okay. All right. So think about that. Whatever you tell here, you're going to need to connect it to have that really good punch, so to speak. All right. Because you want to end with power and obviously influence, because this is your motivation. This is where you created the story. This is how you're motivating people. Now, I suggest that you actually watch the videos that I've given you. There is a student sample outline. There is a student sample video by Mary. There is another video that is an actual paper that you're going to write, analysis of something that was stated by John Lewis. And I'm curious to see what you're motivated to do as a result of his personal narrative, which is very good. And that's your speech. You got to do all this in 3.5 minutes, right? I will tell you, if it was me, I would sacrifice those 5 points to make this phenomenal. If I knew I was going to go over the time a little bit, but every word counted and every word meant something, and I was going to say it with such, passion or humor or whatever, okay, I would say, the heck with the 5 points. I don't care. I want the speech to be good. Any questions?
I got one.
Yes, good.
So are we going to present in front of the whole class?
You're going to present it to me, and then we're going to load it so that everybody in the class can see it.
All right.
Yep. So in the next module, you are going to present to a group of 4 classmates through Collaborate. But for this one, you are just going to, we're just going to videotape it. But you're doing it to me. And that way you have an audience. All right. Good question. Anybody else have a question? Now here's the tricky part. no repeats on which fable you pick. No repeats. Nobody in the class can use the same myth. All right. So my suggestion is that you get out there and you look at the Aesop fables. You find one that has a moral that you can link it to a very important personal lesson that you learned, and then send it to me in an email right away. All right. And it's first come, first get. If you start to write your outline and you say, oh God, this myth is not working, you can change it, but you just cannot change it to whatever somebody else has. Now, some of the myths are very similar. So you may find one that has a particular lesson that's like, oh, I have to do this one, but somebody else has already picked that myth. Just look on and you'll find a different myth. It's got the same moral. It'll just have different characters. Instead of donkeys, it'll be monkeys. Right? Understand that mythology was used as part of oral tradition back there in those ancient Greek times and Roman times and all other ancient times. That was the method that they taught morals, ethics, proper behavior, how to honor parents, etc., through stories. Very similar to when you were a little kid and you heard or were read to with those storybooks. So it's the same thing, only instead of it being written, they were passed down orally. Supposedly a person named Aesop, and you can say Aesop, I don't go crazy on that pronunciation, but Aesop is collected them and finally put them into some kind of written form. All right, so read the instructions, and if you have any questions, in your outline you still have to have your references, so your fable is 1. So your minimum references is 1. How many? 1. How many? 1. That's going to get you a 3 out of 4. If you want to go up to another, if you want to get the 4 points, then you got to have another reference. And this is a good place to have the other reference, is in your conclusion. Or maybe even in your introduction. You can have some fun with that. All right. Let's see. I think we talked about rainbow, we talked about the instructions, we did this. You will be doing 4 peer critiques this time, as opposed to 2 for Module 1. You're going to do 4 in Module 2. And you also have a paper to write. That paper needs to be double-spaced, no more than 2 pages. 1 page is perfect. You are going to watch a speech delivered by John Lewis, who passed away just recently. It's a speech that he presented to the graduating class at Emory University in Atlanta. And he's talking to college students. So I figure he's talking to you. And that's why I selected that speech. So what I want you to be doing is to watch that and be applying things that you're learning in this module to writing your paper about it. That's all I have today. That's our overview. Do you have any questions for me? All right, so we're going to do a ticket to leave. I'm going to turn off the video, and you're going to come up and sit in front of the camera, and you are going to either ask me a question. Yeah, you're going to ask me a question. All right, so